The moment my daughter collapsed on stage will haunt me forever, like a photograph fading at the edges. I was sitting in the third row, dead center, at the Springfield Community Center. My 12-year-old daughter, Sophie, was playing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Her fingers danced across the piano keys, each note pure, perfect. Then, suddenly, they stopped. Her hands froze. Her face drained of color. My heart lurched. I'm Laura. For 15 years, I've built my life around keeping Sophie safe. Every doctor's visit, every pill, every precaution, I made sure nothing could hurt my little girl. But in that moment, as Sophie's body slumped beside the grand piano, I felt the world crack beneath me. Sophie. My scream tore through the auditorium. I was out of my seat before I knew it, my heels clicking on the wooden floor. She was halfway to the stage floor when her head hit with a sickening thud. Other parents stood, their murmurs a dull roar in my ears. What's happening? Is she okay? I barely heard them. My eyes were locked on Sophie, her chest heaving too fast, her skin clammy under the stage lights. I shoved past a stagehand, my hands trembling as I knelt beside her. Sophie, honey, I'm here. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. Mom, she whispered, her voice so faint it broke me. Give her space, someone yelled, but the crowd pressed closer. I cradled her head, my mind racing. I knew what this was. Her condition, she needed her medicine. But that couldn't be right. I'd watched her take it myself, just before the show. Hadn't I? My hands shook as I reached for her purse, fumbling with the zipper. The pillbox was there, just where it always was. I popped it open, expecting her familiar white tablets. Instead, my blood froze. Small white candies stared back at me. Not her pills. Not her medicine. Candies. Someone call 911. I shouted, my voice raw, cracking with panic. The stage lights burned brighter, the whispers louder, but all I could see was Sophie's pale face, her breath shallow, her hand limp in mine. The pillbox trembled in my hands. Those weren't Sophie's pills. They were candies. Small, white, sugar-coated lies. My stomach churned as I stared at them, the Springfield Community Center's stage lights glaring down like a spotlight on my failure. Sophie's shallow breaths snapped me back. Hang on, honey, I whispered, brushing her damp hair from her forehead. Her skin was too cold, too pale. Someone call 911. I yelled again, my voice splintering. The crowd around me buzzed with confusion, parents whispering, kids pointing. I didn't care. I clutched Sophie's hand, willing her to stay with me. Laura, don't be so dramatic. The voice cut through the chaos like a blade. My sister, Rachel, stood at the edge of the stage, arms crossed, her lips curled in that familiar smirk. The same one she'd worn since we were kids, whenever she knew she'd gotten away with something. What? I snapped, my eyes locked on her. Rachel shrugged, her tone icy. Maybe a little humility would do Sophie good. She's been so full of herself lately, don't you think? The words hit like a slap. Humility? My daughter was fighting to breathe, and Rachel was mocking her? I wanted to scream, to lunge at her, but Sophie's weak grip on my hand kept me grounded. Laura, stop this. My mother, Margaret, appeared beside Rachel, her perfectly manicured nails clutching a designer purse. You're making a scene. Sophie's fine. She's just overreacting, like you always do. Overreacting? I stood, my voice shaking with rage. Her medication's gone, Margaret. Someone replaced it with candy. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare call 911. Think about how that'll look. Rachel's wedding is next month. We don't need this drama. Drama? I clutched the pillbox so tightly my knuckles whitened. My daughter needs help. I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. Yes, hello. My daughter collapsed at the Springfield Community Center. Her medication was tampered with. She has a health condition. Please hurry. Rachel's smirk faded as I spoke. Margaret grabbed for my phone, but I yanked it away. You're not stopping this, I hissed. The ambulance's siren wailed in the distance, a lifeline cutting through the suffocating tension. As paramedics rushed in, lifting Sophie onto a stretcher, I heard Rachel whisper to Margaret, She's always been so jealous of me. My blood ran cold. Jealous? No. This wasn't jealousy. This was betrayal. Someone had swapped Sophie's pills. And Rachel's cruel words echoed in my mind, sharp and deliberate. The hospital room was too quiet, save for the steady beep of Sophie's heart monitor. My daughter looked so small in that sterile white bed, her black hair spilling across the pillow like ink. The doctor said she'd be okay, but those hours of waiting, not knowing, had carved a decade into my soul. I sat by her side, clutching her hand, my eyes burning from tears I refused to let fall. My name is Laura, and I'd spent 15 years shielding Sophie from the world. But I hadn't shielded her from my own family. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother, Margaret. I'll be home soon. Need help with Rachel's bachelorette party flowers tomorrow. I stared at the screen, disbelief twisting into rage. My daughter was in a hospital bed, and Margaret was worried about flowers? I tossed the phone into my bag, my hands shaking. Mom? Sophie's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. Her eyes fluttered open, and my heart leapt. I'm here, sweetie. I leaned closer, brushing her hair back. How do you feel? Better. She gripped the blanket, her knuckles pale. Rachel did this, didn't she? She swapped my pills. My chest tightened. Why do you say that? Last week, Sophie said, her voice trembling. I heard her talking to Grandma. She said I needed to know my place. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide with fear. Why does she hate me so much? Before I could answer, my best friend, Emma, appeared at the door, holding a stuffed bear and a thick folder. Hey, sweetheart, she said to Sophie, setting the bear beside her. Mind if I borrow your mom for a sec? In the hallway, Emma's smile vanished. I brought what you asked for. Your dad's will and trust documents. Thanks, I said, taking the folder. 6 months ago, when Dad's will was read, Rachel thought she'd get control of the family trust. Her face when it went to me instead, she'd never looked so furious. Laura, Emma said softly, what's your plan? I glanced back at Sophie's room, her tiny frame swallowed by the hospital bed. Rachel's words echoed in my head. A little humility would do her good. So did Margaret's, dismissing my daughter's life for a wedding. I'm going to make sure Rachel's perfect wedding never happens, I said, my voice steady for the first time since Sophie collapsed. And Margaret? She's going to lose everything she's been stealing from the trust. Emma's eyes widened. You sure about this? They're your family. Family? I gripped the folder tighter. They hurt my daughter. They don't get to call themselves that anymore. Back in Sophie's room, she was dozing off, the bear tucked under her arm. I opened the folder, scanning the trust's terms. Dad had been clear. Any serious misconduct, and the guilty party's access could be cut off. Rachel's smirk flashed in my mind, her cruel words caught on the Springfield Community Center's security footage. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app. The video is there, clear as day. Rachel's voice, cold and deliberate. Maybe a little humility would do her good. That was all I needed. The law office in downtown Chicago smelled of polished mahogany and old money. I sat across from Mr. Thompson, my father's lawyer, spreading documents across his desk like a battle map. Emma sat beside me, her tablet glowing with notes. My hands were steady now, fueled by a fire that had been smoldering since Sophie's collapse. Here's everything, I said, sliding a USB drive toward him. Security footage from the Springfield Community Center, Sophie's medical records, witness statements from the recital. Thompson plugged in the drive, his face unreadable as the video played. Rachel's voice filled the room, cold and venomous. Maybe a little humility would do her good. He winced, adjusting his glasses. This is damning, he said, pausing the footage. Your sister's actions violate the trust's ethics clause. Your father was explicit. Any beneficiary showing malicious intent loses access. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show the transaction history. Rachel spent over $200,000 on her wedding through the trust. Venue, catering, flowers, all due next week. Thompson leaned back. You can stop those payments. But there's more. He tapped the trust's original document. You can freeze her access entirely. Permanently. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Where are you? The vendor needs final payment today. I ignored it, my jaw tight. There's something else, I said, handing over bank statements Emma had dug up. My mother, Margaret, has been siphoning money from the trust for years. Spa trips, luxury shopping, a secret condo in Lincoln Park. All labeled as maintenance expenses. Thompson's eyes narrowed as he scanned the records. This is embezzlement, Laura. If you pursue this, Margaret's access can be frozen too. She'd lose the house, her accounts, everything. Good, I said, my voice cold. Do it. He started typing, his fingers flying over the keyboard. I can file the paperwork within the hour. But this will cause a storm. The trust is meant to protect the family. I am protecting my family, I snapped. Sophie's my family. Not them. Back in the parking lot, Emma grabbed my arm. Your phone's blowing up. I glanced at the screen. 20 new messages, mostly from Rachel. Laura, the payment didn't go through. The venue's threatening to cancel. Answer me. Then one from Margaret. Whatever you're doing, stop. You're embarrassing us. It's starting, Emma said, her voice soft. Let it, I replied, starting my car. They've had their way for too long. At a cafe across the street, we barely sat down when my phone rang again. Rachel's fiancée, Claire. I answered, keeping my tone even. What's going on, Claire? Rachel's freaking out, she said, her voice tense. The wedding planner says the payments bounced. Is this you? Ask Rachel about Sophie's recital, I said. Ask why my daughter was hospitalized. Ask about the candy in her pillbox. A long pause. Candy? Rachel said Sophie had a panic attack. Check your email in 5 minutes, I said. You'll want to sit down. I nodded at Emma, who hit send on her tablet. The security footage, medical reports, and trust documents were on their way to Claire's inbox. Rachel's lies were unraveling, and I was just getting started. The ballroom at the Oakwood Country Club glittered with fake elegance, a desperate attempt to salvage Rachel's reputation. About 50 guests, mostly her clueless friends, sipped champagne and laughed, unaware of the truth. My mother, Margaret, stood by the champagne fountain, her smile as polished as her designer dress. Rachel, in a sparkling gown, played the perfect bride-to-be. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need an invitation. Not anymore. Oh my God, Rachel gasped when she saw me, her voice a sharp whisper. Security. Get her out. They won't help you, I said calmly, setting my briefcase on a nearby table. I'm still a member here. Dad made sure of that. Get out, Margaret hissed, rushing over, her face flushed with fury. Haven't you caused enough damage? Actually, I said, my voice steady, I'm just getting started. I opened the briefcase, pulling out a stack of files. The room's chatter faded as heads turned. Rachel's fiancée, Claire, stepped forward, her brow furrowed. What's going on? Sarah's trying to ruin everything, Rachel sobbed, clutching Claire's arm. On my special day. Special day? I laughed, sharp and bitter. You mean this fake wedding? Funded by donations because you lost the trust fund. The room grew quieter. Guests exchanged glances, their smiles faltering. Want to know why she lost it? I raised my voice, letting it carry. Because Rachel tampered with my daughter Sophie's medication. She landed in the hospital. And Margaret? She covered it up. That's a lie. Margaret shouted, her voice cracking. Really? I pulled out copies of the evidence, holding them up. Security footage, hospital records, police reports, and the trust board's findings. I have enough for everyone. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I opened my phone, playing the Springfield Community Center's footage. Rachel's voice echoed, cold and cruel. Maybe a little humility would do her good. Gasps filled the room. Don't forget Dad's letters, I added, holding up the envelopes. He explained why he gave me control of the trust. Because he knew who you both really were. Rachel lunged for the briefcase, but Claire grabbed her arm. Don't, she whispered, her face pale. It's over. There's more, I said, pulling out one last document. A Morgan Stanley audit. Margaret's been embezzling trust funds for years. Spa trips, luxury condos, all on Dad's dime. The whispers grew louder. Guests stepped back, avoiding Rachel and Margaret like they were toxic. "You're jealous," Rachel screamed, tears streaking her mascara. "You've always wanted my life." "Jealous." I stepped closer, my voice low, lethal. "Of your lies? Your cruelty? The way you hurt my daughter and expect everyone to look the other way." "You're my sister," Rachel pleaded, her voice breaking. "No," I said softly. "You're just someone who shares my DNA. And now everyone knows who you are." Margaret tried one last time, her voice trembling. "Your father would be ashamed." "Don't you dare mention Dad." I held up his final letter. "Want me to read what he thought of you?" He wrote it all down. "Please," Rachel whispered, her hands shaking. "Don't do this." "Like you didn't do this to Sophie?" I turned to the crowd. "You all donated to save her face. Did she tell you what she did to my 12-year-old? Did she mention the hospital?" Claire spoke, her voice cutting through the silence. "This party's over." Guests grabbed their coats, whispering, some pulling out phones to record. The music stopped. The champagne fountain sputtered out. "You ruined everything," Margaret hissed, her eyes blazing. "No," I said, gathering my files. "You did. I just made sure everyone saw it." I walked out, leaving them in the empty ballroom. Rachel's sobs echoed behind me, sharp and broken. Justice didn't feel sweet. It felt heavy, necessary, right? I left the Oakwood Country Club's ballroom behind, the echo of Rachel's sobs fading in the night air. My car hummed as I drove to the hospital, where Sophie waited. The weight of what I'd done settled over me, not revenge, but justice. It felt right, but it didn't erase the ache in my chest. In the hospital's music room, Sophie sat at the piano, her fingers coaxing Chopin's Nocturne into life. A little girl in a wheelchair, bald from chemo, watched with wide, shining eyes. Sophie's smile, bright and real, was the first I'd seen since the recital. The notes filled the room, soft, healing. I stood by the door, my heart swelling. This was what mattered. Not Rachel's lies. Not Margaret's greed. Just this. My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Thompson. "Emergency hearing tomorrow. Margaret's filing for custody of Sophie, claiming you're unstable." I gripped the phone, my jaw tight. Unstable? After they'd nearly killed my daughter? I stepped into the hall, dialing Thompson. "We have the video, the police report, Sophie's records. Can we stop this?" "Absolutely," he said. "They don't have a case. I'll handle it." Sophie's voice called me back. "Mom, she loved it." The little girl clapped, her laughter bright. I forced a smile, tucking the phone away. "You're amazing, sweetie." But the hospital wasn't done with surprises. Margaret's voice rang out from the nurse's station. "I'm her grandmother. I have a right to see her." My blood ran cold. I grabbed Sophie's hand. "Time to go." We slipped out the back exit, where Emma waited in her car, engine running. "Need a getaway driver?" she asked, half smiling. Sophie climbed in, her backpack clutched tight. Through the rear window, I saw Margaret storm out of the hospital, scanning the lot, her face twisted with rage. "Where are we going?" Sophie asked, her voice small. "Home," I said, squeezing her hand. "And tomorrow, we'll make sure they never try this again." "How?" "By showing everyone who they really are." The next day, Thompson crushed Margaret's custody petition. The judge watched Rachel's security footage, read Sophie's medical records, and dismissed the case in under an hour. Margaret's lawyer didn't even try to argue. Rachel, I learned, had fled to a small town in Idaho, working as a waitress under a new name, drowning in debt without the trust fund. Margaret lost the house. The trust sold it, and a young family with 3 kids moved in, eager to make it their own. The proceeds went to the children's hospital, just as Dad would have wanted. Back at home, Sophie practiced her piano, the notes drifting through the house. My phone buzzed again. An anonymous message. "You'll regret this. Blood is thicker than water." I deleted it, my hands steady. They were wrong. Blood wasn't family. Family was a choice, and I'd chosen Sophie. Emma called later, her voice bright. The hospital board approved the new treatment wing. The trust money's making a difference. I smiled, glancing at Sophie. "She wants to play for the kids in the oncology ward." "That's your girl," Emma said. She's stronger than all of them. She was. Stronger than Rachel's cruelty, Margaret's lies, stronger than the pain they'd caused. And so was I. The autumn breeze swept leaves across my father's grave at Greenview Cemetery, where Sophie and I stood with fresh flowers. Sophie clutched a deep red rose, her favorite, and a small piece of candy in her other hand. "Can I do it, Mom?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, watching her place the rose on the granite, then set the candy beside it. "Our little joke," she said, smiling at the stone. "A reminder things are different now." "Yesterday," Sophie said, her eyes on the headstone, "I played Chopin again. The whole piece. No interruptions." My heart swelled. She was healing, growing stronger, every day. I glanced at my phone as it buzzed, a letter from Margaret, forwarded by her lawyer. I deleted it without reading, just like the others. The last one I'd opened was the same tired mix of half apologies and manipulation. It wasn't worth my time. "Mom," Sophie said, pointing toward the cemetery entrance. "Isn't that Claire?" Rachel's ex-fiancée, Claire, was walking toward us, hands in her pockets against the chill. She stopped a few feet away, her face somber. "I heard Rachel moved to Idaho," she said. "Changed her name. Works as a waitress now, buried in debt." "I know," I said quietly. "Got the investigators' report last week." Claire shifted, uncomfortable. "I testified at the medical board hearing. The family doctor who covered up Rachel's stunt at Margaret's request? They suspended her license." Sophie squeezed my hand, her grip firm. I whispered, "Thanks, Claire." "What about Margaret?" Claire asked. "The trust sold her house," I said. "A family with 3 kids bought it. They're fixing it up. The money went to the children's hospital." Claire nodded. "Your dad would have liked that." Sophie tugged my sleeve. "Can I play by the oak tree for a minute?" I watched her run off, her black hair catching the sunlight. The nightmares from the recital were gone. She was tougher than I'd ever imagined. "She's strong," Claire said, following my gaze. "Stronger than any of us knew," I replied, looking back at Dad's grave. Claire hesitated. "There's something else." Margaret called my office, asking for help appealing the trust decision. "She's in a tiny apartment now, scraping by." "Good," I said, unflinching. "You don't feel bad?" "Not even a little." I thought of Sophie collapsing on stage, Rachel's cruel smirk, Margaret's years of lies. The letters Dad wrote, hidden away while I blamed myself. "No," I said finally. "They chose cruelty over kindness. Pride over love." "Mom," Sophie called, running back with a perfect red maple leaf, the same shade as the rose. "Can we put it in the journal, like Grandpa taught us?" My throat tightened. "Of course, sweetie." Claire cleared her throat. "I should go. Just wanted you to know you did the right thing." She left, and Sophie and I stood by Dad's grave, the wind swirling leaves around us. "Do you miss them?" Sophie asked suddenly. "Margaret and Rachel?" "I miss who I hoped they'd be," I said honestly. "Not who they were." "Me too," she said, placing the leaf beside the candy. "But I'm glad we have each other." My phone buzzed. A message from Emma. Hospital board approved the new children's wing. Sophie's trust fund is changing lives. I showed Sophie, and her face lit up. "I learned a new piece for the oncology ward kids. Can we go play it?" As we walked to the car, I glanced back at Dad's grave. The rose, candy, and leaf stood out against the gray stone, small tributes to a man who'd known this day would come. They say revenge is sweet, but this wasn't revenge. It was justice. Protecting what mattered. Choosing love over obligation. "Ready?" Sophie called from the car, already humming her new tune. "Ready," I said, turning away from the past, toward something better, something real. Family isn't forever. It's a choice. And I'd chosen Sophie, our forever, better than any revenge could ever be.